off, and then I'm going to hand things over to Vito to introduce our very special guest for today. As more people are trickling in, I do think we have some newer folks to the Fraudcast, some names I don't really recognize. So if you're new to the Fraudcast, welcome. It is a weekly session that Vito and I host for folks managing fraud and risk in the retail space. And we get together, talk about trends that folks are seeing in their day-to-days, what's happening in the marketplace, topics of interest to all of you. It's intended to be a community space where you guys could talk through what you're seeing, things that you're interested in, and get some support from a wonderful group of fellow professionals such as yourselves. This is not really a webinar type format. It's intended to be a discussion, so feel free to come off mute and be part of the discussion with us at any time. We welcome it. And please, whether you've been with us in the past or this is your first time attending, please introduce yourselves in the chat so we have an idea of who is in the room. I know it could be kind of strange just popping in for the first time and not really just seeing a bunch of floating heads and names and not really knowing who you're talking to. So would very much appreciate it if you guys could introduce yourselves. And a heads up that we do record these sessions so we could share what we're talking about with folks who are not able to make it to this time with us. And yeah, that's about it. So I'm going to hand things over to your host, Vito.
What is up, everybody? Happy Wednesday. Welcome to my hotel room here at the Fraud Ranch. We're building up. We're building up. No, I'm in lovely Portland, Oregon today, checking out the Pacific Northwest. What can I say? I'm so happy to be here with you because I have someone very special to introduce you to and put you into his realm of thought, which is an amazing realm of thought. I think you are going to learn a lot today. You're going to get a lot of stuff in your bag of tricks that you're going to take and cross weave through your own organizations. You're going to become very dangerous today, my friends. Very, very dangerous in a good way. In a great way. So without further ado, I want you to meet my friend, your soon-to-be friend, the president and COO of Coalition Technologies, the one, the only, Jordan Brannon. Jordan, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing really well. I don't want to follow up on that. I'm actually going to ask you to really quickly record my voicemail for me. So that was special. I'm going to ask for the recording from Jenna. But yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be chatting with you again, Vito, and joining this amazing group of non-fraudulent. What do you call them? Not fraudsters. What's the go-to term here? Yeah, really happy to be participating today and joining the Fraudcast.
Well, with some of this crew, they might be looking at you right now and saying, well, Jordan, hold my beer, brother. Watch what I can do. But no, we're all good people, way more upstanding folk than I on this call. Please, like Jenna was getting at, this ain't about me, it's about you. If anything piques your interest, there's even like a monkey you want to get off your back real quick, that's what we're here for, because Jordan, in many ways, in most ways, in fact, in all the ways, is, in my estimation and the world's estimation, kind of the e-com physician. You know, you've done a lot of work. Your work is truly around taking what ails folks in the e-com space and making things a little bit better. What does that mean? What's that like? How is it on the front lines? Love to hear your story, Jordan.
Yeah. I mean, so a quick backstory, origin story. It's a canon event. My brother and I started in e-commerce doing B2B drop shipping, actually, way in the early 2000s. We built our own stores, we marketed them, and right around 2010 or so, we started offering services to other e-com brands, kind of because the manufacturers we were shipping products for actually decided that we were doing too well. They wanted the stores to be their own property. So they bought us out and then hired us. And that's where Coalition Tech was born as an agency. So we've been working really full service with that emphasis on e-commerce for the last 16 years. We're celebrating the ability to drive here pretty quickly. But we do get to touch a lot of different aspects of the e-com experience. And so whether that's platform selection, design development, fraud technology, customer service for e-commerce brands facing their actual consumers. And a big point of emphasis is digital marketing for us. So that's kind of our trajectory. We've got about 260 people today full time. I try and know a little bit about what everybody's doing, which sometimes makes me a pretty good generalist. And hopefully I can offer some of that today.
We definitely want a lot of generalism, and then we want to get into it. But I want to rewind real quick about your past. Were you seen as like a kind of high purchase velocity bad boy when you were doing this drop shipping? Did you feel any friction when you were doing your buying? Do you think you got caught on any sort of like watch list? Was there anything like that going on? Were you a fraudster, Jordan?
Oh, I definitely hit a lot of like spam flags. I mean, this is early 2000s. Our insight, our thought was, hey, we're going to open up this thing called the Yellow Pages, and we're just going to look for people who look like they're manufacturing something in our area, and we're going to just dial. And we're going to say like, hey, Vito, we see that you have this company. We think you might do this thing. Could you let us drop ship from an e-commerce site? Click. And that happened a lot until we found a company that was just on the other side of the Cascade Mountain Range up here in the Northwest. They were making specialty auto gauges for large fleet trucks. And so we set up this exact match domain and built our first e-commerce store. I think the first one was a Yahoo store. And then we started building variants on that with exact match keywords. And again, it was very odd as we started to call more companies. We're like, hey, we actually have a website and we have a book of business we can point to as a success story. But it really didn't help us all that much. We only managed to, I think, land 2 or 3 manufacturers during that lifespan. We hung on to them for almost a decade. But it definitely, I think this was before drop shipping was sort of the YouTube solution to everything. I definitely got a lot of negative reactions from people. We called and told them what we were about and what we were trying to do.
I can't get off this point real quick. You got the almonds activated here, Jordan. When you were drop shipping, was there any sort of drop ship move to a freight forwarder that you started thinking twice about? Like, I'm taking this thing going from here to there to parts unknown. Did you ever kind of get yourself into some sort of like, what am I aiding and abetting in particularly?
There was some weirdness. I think that the worst moment for us when we decided that it probably was the right time to start selling these sites back to the manufacturer. We'd had a little bit of a tussle, but we'd actually bought a lot of the auto gauges and tried to do not only the fulfillment and the actual customer service and all those things, which we hadn't done previously. And we literally had like college brothers, right? So you have someone over to hang out after a night out, and they come back and there's just boxes of tire pressure gauges and humidity gauges just lining walls. It wasn't necessarily the primo apartment we'd set out to get originally. So that was when we sort of realized, okay, they're asking to buy, we probably should sell and unload this inventory, move on and do something else.
Yeah, the boxes that you had in your college apartment were a little different than the boxes that I had, but I dig it.
Still had the dirty dishes though in the sink. Our hygiene wasn't the best at that point in time, but we definitely had the boxes back then.
We had a garbage can that defied physics. You just keep putting more garbage in it and it would just keep getting taller and taller. And anyway, you got me going down memory lane here. Let's bring it into the present day a little bit, because you know me, I love hitting cruise control on memory lane a little bit. What have you successfully recently like ailed? What do you see kind of hurting people the most, especially for this group? Again, I want to position this group as the country doctor in so many ways. I want you to think about this, y'all, as fraud personas, right? You sit on the greatest wealth of customer data. You sit in a position, I always call it out. The Susie School of Communications taught me this. You sit in a position where you can ostensibly influence your entire organization. You might not even realize it, but the curative, the curative powers are in your fingertips, my friend. So when you hear Jordan talk about the stuff that he's seeing in terms of, hey, this business was hurting in this way and this helped, I want you to think about how you can be kind of running this as well. Ask around. But Jordan, what are some of the things that hurt commonly? What are some of the fixes that really have worked? What are some of the things that make you scratch your chin even? Just love to go down this rabbit hole with you and have everyone else kind of chime in about, hey, that rings true to me.
Yeah, big conversations for us when we're talking about the pain points our brands are experiencing often sort of follow the news cycle. So tariffs have been a big one. End of de minimis is sort of another, like everybody's talking about it. But I do think kind of relevant to our conversation, actually had Vito join us for one of our podcasts not so long ago. We talked about AI quite a bit. Everybody everywhere is talking about AI. And so there is just a ton of questions and a lot of brands. We talk about it like sort of that WebMD diagnostic moment where they're like, I think something might be wrong, but I don't know how to check it. So I'm just going to do a quick Google search or ChatGPT it today. And I think around AI, there's a lot of those moments happening. Like, how many customers should I get from AI? Is AI shopping my website? Can it shop my website? When will it shop my website? Are we going to succeed if ChatGPT replaces Google? There's just a lot of those conversations. They seem to be a really common pain point for the brands that we're talking to and working with. And I think it's a big point of emphasis for me as the country doctor trying to figure out what's the cure all here.
Let's talk about that then, that AI bit, because like you said, it is in many ways the topic of the day.
Mm.
From our position in fraud,
Yeah.
I've heard, especially, I guess, Shelly, I'm sorry, I keep calling you out. I'm putting you, Shelly's like, bringiton.com. Like, we want the orders. The question is, who's going to be on the hook for these orders?
Mhm.
What are you hearing, as they say in the old mob movies? What do you hear? What do you say? What are you hearing in terms of that? Like, do you hear anything around the card brands who are all developing their own kind of checkout agents?
Mhm.
Do you hear any of them saying, well, look, you're on your own merchant, but if X, Y, or Z happens, I'm with a lot of my British friends here, X, Y, or Z happens,
Mm.
then we will take liability. Have you heard anything around liability? No is a fine answer, because I haven't heard anything. I'm just curious about that for this group, and then we can dive into a little bit more there.
No, we haven't heard anything yet. And I think part of the reason may actually be that just by nature, a lot of fraud prevention work is kind of designed to work against AI agents, right? You think about just the underlying technology of a automated, web scraper, crawler, actively navigating your page, trying to pretend to be human in the way that it's interacting, navigating to your checkout, inputting someone's personal information, or in sort of a tunneled version of the user's browser. That sets off all sorts of red flags from a fraud prevention, especially on the technology side of things. And so I think there's a lot of focus for our customers just on, can a agent actually even get to the point of helping a user to the checkout? Under what circumstances is that possible? And are we going to run into issues with our payment processor or our gateway where they're just going to say, like, yeah, there's too many red flags here, we're not going to authenticate, and this needs to go in the trash? So that seems to be the bigger conversation. Not a lot around specific liability decisions from the card providers themselves.
Well, you know what? While we chew on that, I've got another question for you. You might have seen this question, y'all. Just to get a temperature check, if we want to go the country doctor route here. Has anything changed in the last week? The last week, by the way, Jordan, the answers to this question were predominantly in the haven't seen anything. And look at this already. Look at this already. Might be from agent buyers, but I'm not so sure, is kind of popping today. I'll take a 46% split, because that's it's almost like you're helping the narrative out here a little bit. When you were talking, Jordan, about peeling back 30 years of thinking, 30 years of conventional thinking
Mhm.
around bots, 30 years of defenses, both at checkout and at even the perimeter, like to get onto your website, in conjunction with what I've heard, and I'd love for you to sniff test this one, that organic web traffic is severely down. And websites like Wikipedia are seeing 20, 30, 40x upticks in traffic, while their donations remain flat, meaning server costs are going out the wazoo. Where is it hurting people? I feel like it hurts everywhere. I feel like, maybe it's akin to getting run over by a rickshaw at this point. And what do you see as like a quick today ailment, or quick today cure for like that whole body Ouch.
Yeah, I think you've got to look at what's happening on your technology and IT side of things, whether that's something that you're sourcing internally or whether that's something that you're relying on a third party for or your software vendors are providing for you. Because there is I would hope that there is a thought process around AI and agentic approaches. I talk a little bit about just some of the challenges that are facing companies today, because what we're seeing is you have companies like Cloudflare, which are sort of an infrastructure provider, and for a lot of companies, a pretty important intermediary between bot traffic, harmful bot traffic, and their actual web servers, are starting to take a position around AI and around AI agents. We're seeing AI companies responding to those in maybe a less than favorable thing. So ChatGPT, for instance, and Perplexity and Claude have all been sort of flagged for inventing sort of shadow bots where they're trying to label them in an obfuscated way, change where the bots are coming from, trying to make it look like it maybe isn't AI so they can circumvent some of these things, which again, just all looks more and more like fraud. But that type of behavior is happening quite a bit. And so I think for a lot of our brands and for a lot of people in that space, you've got to start thinking about like, what is the stance of our IT team, our software vendors, our server providers around AI agents? How are they managing them, identifying them? What is sort of that step one before they even hit us? And then I think from there, it's really becomes a matter of like, what's that experience on the site? What is the technology of the site allowing or not allowing an agent to do?
First big cross-thready opportunity right there to break bread, bring donuts, and kind of stress test your own environment or just have fun with it. So I want to kick this back to the group. Has anybody started those conversations yet? Has anybody spun up an agent, sent it against your own site, expensed it, which is always fun, and been like, hey, how is it when I try to buy this doodad from my own store? Like, am I clicking through a lot of prove your humanity deals? Is it really seamless? Has anybody been there yet? I will take a pause. I don't have water here. Believe it or not, Portland is quite, moist out there. Gross word. But I don't have any water here. I'm going to take a sip out of my imaginary water bottle while y'all think about it. Please, would love to hear from y'all. Even if you're like thinking about starting these conversations or thinking about spinning up your own bots, would love to hear about it. Here's me taking a sip out of my imaginary water.
Shelly she got hers out really quick when you said that, like to taunt you a little bit.
Water. And by the way, Jordan, we do not mistake silence for antipathy here on the Fraudcast. So I'll give y'all a couple more seconds, please. Would love to hear from you. You got the doc in the building. And, you've also got various professors from Fraud University in here, Fraudcast University, sorry, who can also help you get these conversations started, kind of tee you up for starting your own agents, etc. So a couple seconds to ruminate on this one, my friends. We will say that a lot of people are perhaps thinking about it and thinking hard about it. And that's great. That's a cool step one. If you're thinking about it, put some time on CISO's calendar, put some time on, whoever's your, security engineer who's dedicated to the perimeter, put some time on someone from products calendar, put some time on someone from marketing's calendar. And everything Jordan's talking about here in terms of, hey, not only are your buyers obfuscated naturally through a lot of these agentic flows, but the agents, they're the companies that run these agents themselves are obfuscating on the obfuscation to get around perimeter defenses. That's just going to make it really hard for metrics like CAC. For Ryan, here we go. Ryan, jump on in, my buddy.
You're good. I was just trying to think of the right way to word this example of this I saw today, which I don't know. I was thinking agentic AI the whole time, but I saw on LinkedIn there was a fellow fraud fighter who was basically waiting to get access to the 2026 FIFA World Cup and not, you know what I mean? I don't know enough to know, but I'm just curious, is that an applicable use? And then obviously the fears of that are significant if you deploy 1,000 or 10,000 at one time, Swift Ticketmaster scenario and the nightmares of that.
Yeah, we have a client who does a lot of their fashion brand. They do sort of an enthusiast community, streetwear, and they do drops. So they do limited edition, co-branded with collaborator content creators. They do these product drops, and they have already, for years, they've had issues with automated buying. just buying all of the limited edition products, so none of their actual consumers get it. And then all of a sudden, there's 500 pairs of sneakers at 60 times the original retail price that are now going up on eBay or Poshmark, or you take the pick of the platform. And so they are now in that spot of having to think about, well, crap, we've basically blocked agentic buying experiences, which maybe are valid in some cases. And they now have to have an opinion about whether or not they're going to change some of that standard. And if so, when, and how do they actually sort of protect against that negative behavior while still allowing sort of that positive experience where someone actually is legitimate. Like, I'm tired of waiting 10 minutes to click enter and then place my order. What's that going to look like?
Yeah, in the old days, we might say, hey, this is a certain buyer segment, and we want to offer this experience for this buyer segment versus a different experience for this buyer segment. But the problem becomes KYA. Ryan, I know you love the KY acronyms, but the problem becomes KYA. How can I segment out something that I can't really see? With OpenAI in particular, I made a couple of orders through OpenAI. I looked at them through the system, and it's my device, my browsing. There's no identifier in there in the current kind of thinking. A lot of people are developing it, but how far are we away from development? And how long can we wait? And what's it going to take for one big group to pull a trigger and say, you know what, we might not have what we need right now, but we're not leaving that revenue on the table. We're coming into, and guys, I don't know if you know about this, but like in a month, like things are about to get a little hairy and a little bit wild, and everyone's going to be shopping with you. I don't know why I'm doing that voice, but here we are.
That's good. That's good for me. It works. Keep going.
Okay, Jordan. Well, but yeah, I mean, what if I came to you and, if you've got no answer, but I'm sure you do, and I came to you and say, hey, look, Vito's boutique wallet corporation here.
Love it.
Yes. Fine Corinthian leather for all my friends who know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Vito's, have those credit card numbers real quick, everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Don't dox me, bro. Vito's boutique wallet company, we're like, hey, we want that revenue for Black Friday. We don't really know how to know our agent, but we want to take a stab in the dark. What do I do, Jordan?
I think you've got to be looking at zero-party data today as to what's hitting your web server if you can. Obviously, a lot of companies for e-commerce are using third parties who, so you're essentially asking for more first-party data. But you want to make sure that you have some way of tracking and identifying right now and starting to segment, like you said earlier, some of these audiences, like what is bot traffic, and what is actually an agentic browsing experience? Can I actually even tell the difference between the two? And then based on that, start to make some decisions organizationally about whether or not you want to work towards an agentic supported experience, or whether you really want to try and shut it down and kind of ignore it for the time being. We've made some guesses just based on some information that we've had access to that we anticipate more of a broad release of an OpenAI active shopping experience before the Black Friday, Cyber Monday type of time period. And so when that happens, you might see a bigger spike in people actually using this sort of agent to shop for them. But it still is likely a smaller portion. So you can make that decision maybe in 2025. Like, do we gamble and just ignore it and block it? Based on, again, it's really hard to tell if it's fraudulent or not. But I think for brands, they've just got to start to get that information in front of them where they can start to say, like, this looks good, this looks bad. We can't tell. If we can't tell, what are we going to do specifically for this particular holiday stretch? And again, I think a lot of those conversations are going to come back to IT teams, CISO for sure, or a third-party software vendors who you're working with who are hopefully, again, thinking forward and thinking about those strategies.
The strategist in me, or the people person in me, is like, that's such a cool conversation to have, because I define cool in this context as one that can't really blow up in my face. If I go to one of these teams and I'm like, hey, what are we doing for this kind of zero party enrichment? And they're like, bro, we got it. Cool. All right, you got it. I would love to see it. I'd love to play around and see. Or the other end of that, the other side of that coin is we don't have it. Okay, well, awesome. Are we are we going to leave that on the table? Well, what is that? What does it look like? Well, I've been to a couple of fraudcasts, and the host is weird, but the guests really have like got me thinking that there's like something on the table there. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So it's a cool conversation to have, I think. But
Yep.
you know what? We can go down this agentic rabbit hole for hours.
Mm-hmm.
I want to like zoom back to the world of flesh and blood and regular buyers real quick. What do you feel like, Jordan, right now is kind of spiking, or at the very least very commonplace in the, let's just call it the old school way of doing business outside of agents? What are e-commerce brands coming to you for help about related to Joe and Jane Doe doing human things?
Yeah. I mean, I think video commerce and social commerce are still a really big driving force. Again, it's a challenging channel to look at, especially when we're talking about, a fraud type of circumstance, since, a lot of those buyers through like a TikTok, again, the fingerprints don't look good for what you would want in terms of a consumer. And so that's certainly a conversation that we have with a lot of our customers is that social purchase, is that social transaction a good one? Or are we getting some sort of fraudulent behavior for some intent or another? So that's been a big driver for us as well. We're also dealing a lot with sort of renewed ADA activity coming out of New York specifically. It can kind of tie back into that sort of AI type of experience as well. And I think we also are dealing with sort of some evolutions just in some major channels, right, in response to AI. So maybe not necessarily involving an agent directly, but Google and its advertising products, Facebook and its advertising products, things like that, which are changing fundamentally because of consumer expectations evolving.
So much to unpack there. And I have a question. What is ADA, and why is New York the hotbed of it? Would love to expand my vocab a little bit.
Yeah, ADA is Americans with Disabilities Act. So traditionally was aimed at making sure that people had safe access to workplaces or places of public engagement. And, you think about this as like a wheelchair ramp is a really obvious thing, that the right sized doorway, bathrooms and other facilities like that, which have common use. And whether or not they're really just built to allow someone with different abilities to access and then have meaningful engagement with the public space or with a public marketplace or not. And that's evolved to incorporate the web over the last decade. There's been an increasing focus on whether or not websites themselves are accessible and under what situations is it an okay level of accessibility or not. It's also been a place for bad bot activity to be used to generate a lot of spammy lawsuits in a number of different jurisdictions. New York has become sort of the hotbed for that recently, just because a lot of what's happening with ADA suits, with ADA specific compliance rules for websites is being determined through the judiciary rather than legislation. And so you have people suing and then figuring out what the new legal standard is. And New York has had a couple of things that have opened up some broader monetary opportunities for some of these spammier lawsuits over the last 16 to 18 months or so. And so we've seen ADA suits die down a little bit in the US in 2023, 2024. But again, that seems to be kind of back up onto the right.
It is kind of like all roads lead to agentic and all roads lead to bot, because as I'm thinking about this with accessibility options, I'm sure a lot of it is like, I want to do something through voice and I can't, I don't want to like plug it in, or vice versa. And that will carry a different page time on metric or copy paste metric or something that's just like traditionally bad from fraud hammer type deals. So I got a question for the group then. Jordan brings up social selling, social buying. Is anybody working with, TikTok, Instagram shops, like anything like that? Anyone got any war stories in that regard? I'm sure you do. Or are y'all like Facebook? That's like Zima. Like no one wants that. Like, what's your experience like with the socials, y'all? I feel like, again, I hate the S word, Shelly, I feel like you've got some social experience, but I'm sure others too. So imaginary water bottle.
Calling out Zima was bad. I love it when they brought back Zima for a summer. It was like the best summer of my life.
Zima.
Okay. Anyway, we do actually do a lot of that social platform, but we filter all of our apparel purchases through Shopify. So they let us know what market it's coming from, and I'm able to control it that way. We also do any online stuff because it's all coming through our one warehouse. So we actually work with Target and Nordstrom's and a couple other vendors out there for, fresh apparel. We also have wholesale stuff, but we ship that off. But I'm actually really pleased with the Shopify platform because it helps put that control in place so I don't have to monitor it all the time. And that's nice to have that tool. But as far as anything else, I think the biggest problem we have is it's not the apparel side, it's our connected fitness units, because that has to be a hands-on experience, because we literally take it to your front door and into your house. So there can be a lot of challenges with that. And the people purchasing it online. You don't have to engage a human being, but you do eventually have to for scheduling, but there's not a lot of control set up. We have an internally built system that has a lot of room for improvement. So yeah, I think that's my biggest challenge in the e-commerce world is our own internal systems and the controls that aren't there.
Well, the doctors in the building, I would love for a little consultation, if you don't mind, Jordan. Like, what would you advise, or, what kind of move your arm? Like, you have a little thing. I don't know what that is. The hammer. Like, what would you do in this situation?
I do want to ask Shelly a little bit more about that connected experience, is what this specifically is meant there. On the fraud side of things with Shopify, I'm kind of curious how much tracking or evaluation you're doing with those channels against each other, because that's been a really interesting unlock for us as we're on the advertising side, so we get paid to spend money to generate money. And one of the bits of feedback we've had from a few of our high volume sellers is, optics wise, the return on ad spend looks good on these channels, but we see a higher rate of fraud. So I'd be curious to sort of hear that, but also just that connected experience, what that challenge specifically looks like for you.
So for connected, I'm sure you're familiar with the Peloton brand, bikes, treads, ropes, all sorts of fun things. So that connected experience, as far as the fitness units, it's us making that purchase, getting deliveries scheduled with our 3PL partners, because we don't do our deliveries. We outsource that.
Okay.
And getting them in the home. What we're finding issues with is the validation of the delivery in an address form. So Vito mentioned my maybe third favorite F word, freight forwarders. And it's a control I managed to put on at a high level, but I had to start at our delivery hubs to let them know you can't deliver here because there's no validation of address physicality on an online order that says, oh, this is a warehouse. It just doesn't pop up that way. So there's a lot of human controls that I put in to go backwards and flow back so we can cancel an order. So a fitness unit doesn't leave the area it's built for. A great example is our magnificent Tread Plus. If you try to freight forward that to the UK, you'll probably burn your house down.
Yeah.
So we have to control it because it wasn't built for that voltage. So there's a lot of safety controls in place for that. But as far as the apparel side, we also deal with Narvar and Boomi. So we have a lot of layers.
Yeah.
And I was actually just on a call the other day with my engineers for Shopify, Boomi, and Narvar. And the amount of things I think I didn't learn on that call were impressive. But they have a lot of things that are going to place, like webhooks that are able to control. And it's like, oh, yeah, we can just put this layer in and put this layer in. It's just layering your defenses.
Yeah.
Did I answer your question? Do you have more?
Yes. I think it's interesting. That is an interesting challenge. So the specific thing that you're running into is the issue of when you deliver a unit to a particular locale, it's really only meant for that locale. If it goes elsewhere, there's been a mistake that's happened. So is there automation? You said it's almost all human related filtering to sort of say like, hey, this is actually going to somebody's random warehouse in the middle of Portland, we'll say, it looks like it's going to be shipped offshore and we're not doing delivery as a result. Okay. Yep. That's interesting. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. There's no automation for the addresses, validating the addresses before it gets to our delivery partners, then have to, hey, let's pull out the old school MapQuest and get them to the location. And then they're like, hey, we discovered this place is a warehouse, and we don't do that. We don't deliver to any warehouse. They're meant for residential use. We have a whole commercial team that handles delivering to commercial. So
awesome. Yeah, I can speak from a couple of different perspectives. We have a client of ours is Microsoft, and we work with Azure, specifically with their mapping team, which is kind of a competitor to Google Maps. Many of you sort of probably have like a travel app on your phone where you drop in whatever directions. Both Google and Microsoft have a commercial product there, which UPS and everybody else is consuming. And it does a lot in terms of identifying the destination and address. Microsoft is doing some interesting things, and they have sort of self-service type options where you actually are able to get essentially AI awareness as to where that product is being delivered. So if it is actually almost like at a street view level of intelligence, where it can help prevent some of that sort of misdelivery where maybe the product hasn't gone out or the address is unknown, that actual API can help sort of make that determination before that address is even accepted. Obviously, layering that back to Shopify is, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps to get there. But if you're still kind of doing that manual review process, I would expect that there's value in some form of direct integration. And again, not sure how strong the partnerships are with your providers, but they should be able to pull in like, hey, this is a business address, or it appears to be a business address. Let's get some confirmation for that, because a lot of that is actually available via API certainly within Google and within Azure Maps as well. So I'd be surprised if someone couldn't close that gap a lot more for you.
that's awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that was sort of a tangent for us, just because we got into the weeds with actually how does Microsoft advertise and sell Azure Maps to UPS and to Domino's Pizza to get the pizza to your house and all those sorts of things. So
amazing. Hey, y'all, in the last 5 minutes here, you've got an opportunity. You just heard what the good doctor does. You want to hear what the good doctor says about what you've got going on. Now's your time. The floor is yours. Jordan, this has been amazing. I would just love for anybody come off mute. What are you seeing? What are you feeling? What's hurting you? Even if it's things that you've heard through the grapevine at the proverbial, I guess we're all remote in many ways, but at that water cooler in the sky, so to speak. That sounds kind of like death. But, what are you hearing? And what do you think you could be perhaps tangentially related to in terms of an antidote for what you've got going on? The floor is yours, my friends. No problems. Everything is hunky-dory. Everything's feeling good. Lynn, I see you smiling. I know everything's hunky-dory over there, right? All right, we got thumbs up. Lynn, we got thumbs up. Jordan, then my question to you, with the big game coming up, with the thank you, Mike, for helping me out with the water. The great Johnny Cash song about the water rising, mama. With the big game coming up, the month of November and beyond, you've seen this play out often. You've been in this game for long enough. You've heard the horror stories. One of the things, we want to talk songs, the faces, ooh la la. I wish that I knew what I know now when I was younger. If you're talking to somebody, which you are, you're talking to at least 30 folks here. If you're talking to somebody who's like, hey, this might be my first Black Friday, Cyber Monday, or I've done a couple and things have been, what would you advise to look out for? What have you seen gone awfully wrong? And what have you seen people do in the lead up that really help them close out Q4 end of year on a positive, feeling good note? Would love to hear from you on that.
Yeah, a couple thoughts. One, again, I would expect a lot more AI-driven browsing and purchasing behaviors. So you have to have some way of fingerprinting what's legit, what's not. We are probably heading into a bit of a fractured AI period where lots of different companies are publishing their own agents. We see browsers doing this now. So Mozilla is working on some things, Microsoft, Google with Chrome. Again, Safari has some options as well. That's going to just make some of the signal noise, which you depend on a lot for the fraud side of things, look a little funny and look a little weird. And so trying to have a good grasp on that now is probably really, really critical. I would also just stress from like the advertising agency side of things. for brands that we work with, their marketing teams, their merchandising teams, there's often this big win moment where they feel really, really good about what's happening because they have no idea what's happening on the fraud side of things. So if you're not involved in that return on ad spend conversation before the holidays, you're going to cost your brands a lot of money because they just are going to fly blind, and they're going to say like, hey, we spent a ton of money on Google Ads. We spent a bunch of money on Meta. We sent more emails than we've ever sent, more text messages than we ever send, and we got roasted, roasted, as Vito's put it in there, because we just didn't have that insight that we needed from the fraud team. Break that down by channel if you can, again, from the advertiser's standpoint, being able to pinpoint and say like, hey, again, TikTok, fine. Facebook, fine. Actually, Instagram, bad. Like we've got some different metrics here that say that, maybe our Instagram checkout experience is maybe more prone to fraudulent activity. And as a result, we need to look at tailoring our advertising strategy to be a little more defensible there. Those things are really, really critical. And then again, just as much as possible, making sure that whatever fraud technology you're using from an automation standpoint isn't killing the checkout. We've had some ugly moments like that where we've seen new fraud tech implemented, really wasn't well tested and thoroughly tested. And so all of a sudden you get all this traffic and it's closing down a lot of different transactions and can really impact that key selling season.
Please, y'all, try and make an order on your own site. If you haven't done it already, please do these kind of things. If you won't get expense for it, give me a call. Like, you got a shoulder to cry on. You've seen my credit cards. You kind of know what to spend.
Yeah.
Jordan, where can people find you? How can they blow up your inbox? You've given us so many great starting points. I'm genuinely, these conversations are awesome. Talk to your marketing teams. Just talk to your CISO. Give them those big kind of questions, and it's not going to blow up in your face. I promise you. I've done it a bunch. It's a fun time. You make fun new friends, and you get yourself involved in so many great things. But Jordan, where can people find you? What should they be on the lookout for? What's hot in your world in terms of like what you're working on? Please, my friend, plug away, plug away, plug away.
Yeah, Jordan at coalitiontechnologies.com. You can hit me directly that way. A little humble brag, you can search for us, search SEO company, most places in the world will show up number one. Little flex of the SEO skill set still working out there. Those are great ways to sort of get in touch with our teams. We'll have our own podcast that's going live called Cyber Salve. It's going to focus on digital pain points that brands experience. So if you have a particular pain point in fraud and working with e-commerce or digital marketing teams, let me know. That'd be a great conversation for us to have as well, and something we can incorporate into some of our content. And outside of that, we are really closely watching evolutions of what's happening with Google AI mode. Apple's talking about launching its own AI search experience. So again, this space gets a little more chaotic before it gets any cleaner and prettier, and before the AI overlords summon us to that wonderful place up in the sky. So
we love chaos. We thrive on it, don't we? And I love this. I love being with you every Wednesday. It's truly a blessing, not just to have you out here, Jordan, giving us all this great information, but to have all of you asking questions, having fun. You light up my life, y'all. You truly do. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, all the way out here in Portland. I'm about to jump in an Uber and go down to Airport Way. Holler at me if you got any requests for selfies and whatnot or whatever. Until next week, my friends, hit up Jordan, hit me up. Hit up Ryan, Shelly, Lynn, anybody. Let's get the old family chat going very soon, Jenna. Very, very, very soon. We got something in the works for y'all. You're going to love it. But until next week, thank you so much for coming out. I hope you have an awesome rest of your week. Rest up because the fight is about to begin, or else we're already done begun, as we say around these parts. Have a great one. Take care. We'll see you soon.